The average person thinks that landlords are these fat cats who just sit back and get rich off of rents. And I bought into that narrative myself once. And wow, was I wrong? So I could tell you plenty of horror stories, and I might in the course of this episode. But because you may have already heard me rant about this topic before, I wanted to bring in a fresh voice and a fresh perspective on this topic. So today we have Michael Vulgarakis. He's a commercial real estate investor with over 18 years of experience. He has bought over $300 million worth of real estate through his company, Southgate Ventures. So, Michael, I want to chat with you about why does landlording suck? First of all, I can rattle off my own list of reasons, but I'm curious to hear your perspective on this.
Everyone seems to think it's just very simple. You buy a building and you pay a few bills and you collect all this rent and it's great. But the reality is there's so much work to do between even looking at deals, buying them, operating them all the way through until you actually get those dollars into your pockets. And I think that's one thing that people vastly underestimate when they look to go into buying properties and operating them on their own.
Yeah, the work of buying investment properties, it starts with just finding a good deal, finding these off-market deals that for below market pricing on a property. That in itself requires an enormous skill set. It requires a lot of work. And then you have to find financing and arrange funding for these deals. You have to pull permits on them. You have to renovate the properties and hassle with contractors. And then you have to hassle with housing inspectors after you, or as you do that renovation work. And then once you get your use and occupancy permit and the property's finished being renovated, then you have to hassle with either tenants or with property managers, both of whom come with their own set of headaches. So many people just think, oh, this passive income, it's really not passive. So, what have your experiences been back when you were just doing one off or smaller properties? What have your experiences been with the returns versus the headaches?
It's really, it really depends on the asset, right? If you're buying something at a phenomenal basis, meaning a price that's low enough, then the juice is worth the squeeze at that point, right? But it's very hard to win deals that are that low in price, right? You'll come across those triples or home runs every so often, and you want to take them down. But more often than not, real estate is a singles and doubles game where you're buying something that you like, you're not getting some extreme discount, but you're buying it at a price that makes sense. And you're going to be able to make some money off it, clip a coupon, and you probably also get appreciation as well. So you will make money out in the end. But so often, the work that you have to do to source those deals and know what to pay for those deals is a real critical skill that you have to have up front. And I say that because it is an incredibly capital intensive business, right? It's not like I can go buy a share of Netflix today, a couple clicks, I bought it. There isn't that much risk because I can sell it if I need the liquidity. When you buy a property in real estate, any type of real estate, you're locked into that property. So you had better have done all your research and be very confident that you believe in that deal for a particular reason, because you're probably going to hold it for what I would call long term. Could be a year or two, could be 10 years, but that is still a long term to lock up money. And if you get it wrong, if you buy it wrong, that is, that's where I hear the worst horror stories coming from, where people overpay.
Yeah, and you raised a really good point there about the how easy it is to get into some investments versus going out and buying a rental property. So when you buy a rental property, first of all, it is a long-term commitment. And it's notoriously illiquid, right? It costs money to buy in the form of your buyer's closing costs. And then it also costs money again to sell when you go and have those sellers closing costs. So two rounds of closing costs, that means that typically you have to hold that property for at least a handful of years in order to appreciate enough to cover those two rounds of closing costs. And it takes time, it takes money again to sell. There's also a high minimum investment when you go out and buy a rental property between the down payment, the closing costs, any cash reserves that the lender requires, any initial repairs you have to make. And so you're typically looking at between 50 and 100 grand in money that you're going to personally tie up in a rental property, which is roughly equivalent to what you were going to need if you're going to invest passively in a syndication. It's often typically in that 50 to 100 grand range, unless you are going in through an investment club, like what we do at Spark Rental, where it's 5 grand. But 5 grand is still more than what you would pay buying a share of Netflix, for example, like you said, where, for a couple $100, you can buy a single share. And while there is a lot of price volatility, you can also pull your money out at any time as well. Yeah, I had the realization when I first moved abroad about 10 years ago that I was just how much I'd been subsidizing my rental properties with my own labor. Once I could no longer do that, once I moved to the other side of the world, we moved to Abu Dhabi, and I had, I don't know, I guess 15 rental properties somewhere around then at that time. And yeah, when I could no longer subsidize them with my own work, not only did the returns go down, but I realized that the value of my time was a major cost as well, as opposed to index funds or stocks or passive real estate investments where you're not tying up all your time in it. Yeah, Michael, do you have any parting thoughts or what people might consider instead if they are thinking about becoming a landlord, thinking about buying rental properties directly versus maybe other types of real estate investments?
Yeah, I think that the right strategy for most people that don't have what I'll call extensive experience in commercial real estate and all the Rolodex that comes along with it, the bankers, the property managers, the proper underwriting model, really soup to nuts. I really think that the way for those people to gain exposure to a particular property type in a particular market is to invest with a seasoned operator in that market who specializes in that particular property type. That takes years for that individual or group to get to that point. So if you think about it, most real estate investors are making some money through a job or a business they own, right? That is their base, if you will. That's where they get their security from. It's steady cash flow. They pay their mortgage out of there. So if you were to take on learning this whole new type of work, this whole new area, it's typically not where people's strengths lie. And it chews up so much of their time that I've seen a number of investors who have gone out, bought the 5 unit building, and then thrown their hands up after a few years saying, I'm spending all my time on this property. My relationships with my family are being neglected. I'm not sleeping enough. I'm not exercising. And to another degree, their jobs or their businesses are starting to suffer from it because they just don't have enough time in the day. So that's why I would recommend someone find a seasoned operator, learn how to vet operators and deals, and you can learn an awful lot from that process alone and learn to spy good deals from mediocre deals to bad deals. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, and just to highlight one thing that you said there is when you invest passively with different operators, you can diversify by investing with specialists, right? So you don't have to become a specialist yourself. You don't have to gain all that experience yourself. So, for example, in our co-investing club, every month we get together and we vet a different deal from a different operator. So we get to invest with a land flipper one month and a real estate developer another month, and then a multifamily operator another month, and the next month, an industrial real estate deal. And each one of those operators is an expert with years or preferably decades of experience. And they've done dozens of different deals, if not hundreds. But we get the benefit of each of their niche experience and specialty without having to become an expert ourselves in any one of those niches. That's a great point. Michael, in 30 seconds or less, how do you help people and how can people connect with you?
Sure. The way I can help people is if they're interested in investing in multifamily real estate in the Pacific Northwest. My partner and I specialize in investing in value add multifamily in the Seattle area, anchored by economic juggernauts, Microsoft, Amazon, etc. And the way to reach us, best way is our website. It's sreventures.com, Southgate Real Estate Ventures.com, and they'll be able to reach me that way.
Awesome. Michael, thank you so much. And guys, if you got a fresh perspective out of this episode, pay it forward, pass it on to a friend or family member. And If you didn't get anything out of it, then email us at support@sparkrental.com. Let us know what you want to hear more about moving forward. And lastly, consider joining our co-investing club. We get together every month. Like I said, we'd love to hear your voice in that conversation as well. In the meantime, stay weird, unconventional investor.